been at least 30 years since I picked up a book by Arthur C. Clarke. I've read 2001 and 2010, and I'd gotten a few chapters into 2061 and got bored with it. Never finished, moved on to other things. So now I wanted to return to Clarke, but I didn't want to do Childhood's End or Rendezvous with Rama. I wanted to start with something with a good reputation that people maybe don't talk about as much. So here we are with Earthlight. Bertram Sadler is an accountant on Earth a couple hundred years in the future. He was recruited by Central Intelligence on a mission to the moon. He's tasked with performing an audit on the observatory there, but really he's there to find a spy. He's compelled to leave his new wife behind on Earth, which he's not too happy about, but it's not often that you get recruited by the government for a spy mission. Why not use existing spies? Well, Earth really didn't seem to need them until now. As the story develops, we learn that resource-sharing issues have developed between Earth and the Federation of other planets and moons in the solar system in various stages of settlement. So Earth has vital resources that the Federation needs, and a recent discovery on the moon threatens to further disrupt the balance of power. So now, after hundreds of years of peace, mankind is once again on the brink of war. And two astronomers, Wheeler and Jameson, may have stumbled upon a terrible secret out beyond the observatory's territory by the creators of Plato. I'm on the record as saying I'm not a particular fan of hard sci-fi. I don't need my story's science to be verifiable. I have no problem suspending my disbelief for wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, as long as the universe stays consistent. And sometimes, even then, I can just go with it. Sometimes. But it's not like I'm opposed to hard sci-fi either. I just don't want the science to get in the way of a good story. All this is to say that it's clear that Clarke has done the research about all the in-depth details of the ins and outs of how lunar life would work. And he's very enthusiastic about telling you all about it in ways that generally feel a bit more like character observations rather than the info dumps that they often are. Probably because the observations are being made more often than not by scientists through the lens of character. Sometimes they become a ramble, but I do think overall he's better than most hard sci-fi authors at this. At least among those I've read so far. I especially liked his ability to use the science to move the plot forward in various ways, most often through consequence or threat of consequence. If you're enjoying this video, why not buy my book? Flight of the Pangolin is the story of an intrepid group of heroes who decide to exit the solar system over the objections of an isolationist faction. There's actually a lot more going on than that. There's space pirates, a giant spider for no reason, all kinds of other things. Buy it now online wherever you buy books or at our website, www.thepangolinrepublic.com. You can also get fun t-shirts and random other stuff if you want. For fans of the Pew Pew, there's a clinically described land-space battle and a thrilling maneuver where a crew of 150 needs to spacewalk to evacuate their ship. So those were action highlights, but overall the tension here is mostly political in nature. There's a little bit of everything, except aliens. Slight spoiler, just don't get your hopes up, there's no aliens in this book. And that's okay. Having been written in 1955, nearly 15 years before the first moon landing, there are a few misses. There's no hardy cacti or plants of any kind on the moon, and we now have screens for our computer outputs instead of printers. That one seems to come up a lot in science fiction of this era. I'm not going to check his work, but I'm sure the majority of his science is accurate, at least to the time. If not, he's an even better writer than I give him credit for, because he sells it very well. I liked how the character of McLaurin, the observatory director, was handled. He was described as being extremely short, and no one ever messed with him, just a very formidable personality. And in passing, we learned that his spacesuit is a meter tall. But the book never defines McLaurin with the label of like little person, as we would say now, or a term they might have used back in 1955. And I don't think it would have even come up if the detail wasn't notable in the story. And that led me to notice that while everyone at the observatory was a man, it's 1955 after all, I didn't recall any of them being described with any ethnicity. So I guess I'm not the first author to do that. I didn't think I was, but now I'm more sure about it. Being as lean as it is, Earthlight doesn't go particularly deep on character development, and about 2/3 of the way through the book the focus of the plot changes drastically, from Sadler's investigation to the astronomers and their discovery out in the lunar wilds beyond the domed cities, and a brief spot where we follow the Federation flagship for a bit. The changes come organically through the plot, but it did leave me hoping to get back to Sadler's story that I was originally invested in. which it eventually circles back to at the end. I later learned that this sort of, I don't want to call it unevenness, but it's kind of uneven, is due to the book initially being a novella that Clark later expanded into novel length. So it's a fix-up, is what I'm saying. So for the first 2/3 of the book, for some reason I was picturing it in my head as having a 60s Kubrick aesthetic, for obvious reasons, but through a Wes Anderson filter. I think a guy like Anderson could get a lot of mileage out of an accountant with basically no spy training being recruited to flush out a mole on the moon. But as the political situation got more serious as the book went on, the tone veered away from Anderson's lighter touch later in the book. So now I don't know who should adapt this. So yeah, this was a relatively short book, but good. Clark is a great writer who's maybe more enthusiastic about the science than the characters, but overall he definitely put together a good story here. So, should I read more Clark? Should I add Rendezvous with Rama to my TBR? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time.